What's going on, Duval? Thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Forecast Jacks. I am your host, Big C, aka Chris Haynes or Color Woe. Make sure you are tapped in with us for your shirt. If you don't have your shirt yet, make sure you tap in $25 or 2 for $40. $20 shirts, can't beat it. Just tap in with our DMs in order to get that. Also, make sure you follow our sponsor, Savage at Peace. Shout out to him for reaching his 5-year anniversary. We just had his gallery last night at the Safe House. It was wonderful, just to say the least. We also had the Safe House Market up there. Lots of stuff going on. Make sure you're tapped in. With that being said, I have decided to tap into a market I haven't seen anybody, not just podcasts, but anybody really highlight. Today we have Tierrah Samuels with us, who is a doula.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Would you like to tell the people what a doula is so I don't disassociate?
Well, simply put, a doula is a supporter. And that comes in the form of providing educational support so that my clients go in to birth feeling comfortable and confident. I also provide not just educational support, but also provide different comfort measures, emotional support. I like to keep my clients grounded whenever they're going through the different ins and outs and the ebbs and flows of labor and birth. I'm also a postpartum doula, so I support them with different postpartum ups and downs and ebbs and flows as well.
Got you. Okay. So just to get it short, I went to school with Tierrah, so we've known each other since we were in 9th grade.
Yes, it's been a minute.
Yeah, so that was one of the reasons that I'm in touch with her. I do not have any children, so just disclaimer, whatever I say when it comes to the practice, her word is final, not mine. I might say something that's off track. Don't clip me and try to get me canceled. But yeah, thank you for coming in. I think this is something that I wasn't aware of until I was told that you do it.
Yeah.
And again, no kids. I have friends with kids, but I'm not that deep in the process.
For sure.
So what got you into being a doula?
I kind of stumbled upon it. I had a friend, I was working at a children's play space, and I had a friend who was a doula. And I was kind of in the middle of this stage of trying to figure out how I can be of service. Like, what can I do? Like, being in the children's play space was cool and all, but like, how can I really dig deep and be of service? And I was explaining that to her, and she was like, well, why don't you just be a doula? And I was like, a what? I guess a doula. And she explained it, and she kind of led me down that direction. And after that, it was kind of all she wrote.
I think that's I had a thought while you were saying that. That's very like deep, because you're getting down to the root instead of like, because you're doing childcare. Okay, the kid's been, at what age were you doing childcare?
Between birth and 5.
Oh, okay. So you were already still with the newborns, but like their first glimpse
breath
in the world. Yeah, their first breath and all that. Like, so for you to help build that foundation properly, I think that's very important, like for the future of that child and the ease of parenting.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool. What got you into childcare though? Like, I want to get back to like where
root.
you started like caring about children. Did you have your own children before you got into childcare?
I did.
Okay.
Yep. I actually started taking my kids to this place. It was called Band B back then. COVID, they closed down during COVID, but I actually took my kids there. And I was like, this is actually pretty cool. A lot of women were able to take their kids there. It wasn't necessarily like a daycare, but it was more so a play space. So moms, parents, grandparents, whatever, would take their children there. And it actually, a community started to build. And it was cool being part of that community and witnessing these other mothers and things that they're going through. And I was like, you know what? I want to work for this company. I love it. So that's how I ended up getting into that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So what went further from like when you started getting into it? What translated you into wanting to become a doula? Like, I know you said that you found out about somebody else, but that's in my opinion, that's your initial thought when you hear it. Like, oh, that sounds cool. But like, what sold you on becoming a doula and transitioning from? Do you consider what you were doing childcare?
Yeah, because somewhat.
Okay, yeah. Well, what would you consider like before you were a doula,
Mm-hmm.
what was your role?
I mean, it was more so still serving parents and members, more so, supporting them in whatever they needed while they were there with their children.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was there also, I was able to develop a support group for mothers, which I think that was probably the real seed, to be honest with you, really witnessing these parents and these mothers going through different things, going through different postpartum depression, going through things with their partners after birth, and just all the things that mothers go through. And I was like, geez, like this is a lot. Like, again, how can I be of service outside of this?
Right. And then as you being a mother, I feel like it resonated with you personally, like you felt it. And maybe you didn't have that support when you gave birth.
Yep.
I'm going to say you have 3 children?
4.
4 children.
Yep.
Okay. Gaps.
Mm-hmm.
What were let's go down the gaps of, your first birth, not knowing what a doula is.
Yeah.
Did you get yourself a doula at any point?
I never had a doula for any of my births.
Interesting.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the first one, again, I had no idea what natural birth was, like nothing. So I went the traditional route. The second time around, I was like, okay, and this doesn't feel right. Like my first experience wasn't all that. So I ended up getting a midwife and having a birth center birth for my second. For my third, I wanted to go the unassisted route, but that didn't end up happening just because of my life situation. So I ended up having a hospital birth with her, but no doula still, just because I had plans of doing it all by myself, having it completely unassisted. And then with my fourth birth, again, that was unassisted.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's cool though, because you, instead of taking guidance from somebody, you went through your birth yourself. So you kind of have the feeling of what it's, have you always done it without, what is it, the epidural? Mm-hmm. So always no epidural, just straight natural birth?
The first one, I got everything. Give me all the drugs.
Because you weren't familiar.
Exactly.
I got you.
Yeah, but the last 3 were completely natural.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's cool. That I think it just solidifies what you're doing because it's inspired from your experience.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So this is doula, yes or no, is more like holistic than the midwife approach, would you say?
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely do focus on, as a doula, we focus on the whole person rather than just the medical aspect.
Right. Mm-hmm. So what got you into the holistic lifestyle? Because like, I know we're talking about the doula right now, but we know you're very health conscious, not just with what you eat, but what you intake, what you've seen lately. You've been like going to the beach and being with the water and stuff like that. So like, what introduced you to like holistic living?
My great grandmother, whenever I was growing up, I would every summer go to Sarasota with my grandmother, and she was always very, very like adamant about everything organic. If it's not organic, you can't have it. And at the time I was like, man, this is bull crap. I don't want these weird sausages. Yeah. I hated it back then. But as I got older and I developed more of an adult relationship with my grandmother, like I started to understand what she was talking about. And she gave me a book called A Diet for a Poisoned Planet. And after reading that, I was like, all right, I'm sold. Yeah. And that was the seed that really took me on my natural journey, I think. Yeah.
What year was this when you first like noticed the organic stuff? Like what year was that, would you say, or time era? Because organic is still kind of new, like on the mainstream level.
Yeah. You mean as a child?
Yeah, like you were a child, right? Like under 10 type deal.
Yeah.
So that just shows like
all I remember is her always.
This stuff has been available. Mm-hmm. It's been happening. It's just very under the radar. Like I know somebody who, when I was in middle school, my aunt was dating him, and he shopped at Native Sun on Bay Meadows.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything. I found out the term organic. That's how I heard it. Because I mean, I grew up on like food stamps, lower income neighborhood. Noodles is the thing. Like everybody's eating noodles, of course, chips and juices. Like nothing really has substance as far as what people are eating on the regular.
TV dinners.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's
you remember the one with the little penguin on it? The little blue bun? Yes.
Of course
I used to love those.
The best brownies in the world. Better than a home-baked, a bakery chef.
Yep.
Better than that, man. That brownie used to hit every time. But, we got to grow apart from sometimes nostalgia is bad. Nostalgia is not always a good thing. That's I guess bad nostalgia is just trauma.
Essentially, yeah. When you know better, you do better.
Yeah. So, I want to hear. Well, if you're willing to share, I want to hear like something that like a story in which having a doula was very impactful for like the birth, like while the mother was in labor.
Yeah.
How have you comforted or helped with the process? And you feel like that would encourage people to at least look deeper into having a doula whenever they're experiencing birth?
Okay. I'll give you two. One at home and one in the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay. So the one in the hospital, I had a client who was adamant about being natural. She didn't want any epidurals, no Pitocin, none of the drugs that they offer. And she also didn't want to consent. Now, just to give a little bit history, there's a few interventions that they also incorporate in the hospital. Episiotomy, forceps, vacuum, a couple of different things to get the baby out.
Forceps, like to open the woman up?
To grab the baby's head.
By the head?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we didn't consent to any of the interventions, right? So whenever you come into the hospital, you have a paper, you consent to this, X, Y, Z. We didn't consent to any of those. And while she's delivering the baby, we've gotten past labor, we've done everything natural. While she's delivering the baby's crowning, and immediately the doctor says episiotomy. And there was no medical necessity. There was no real reason for her to do an episiotomy other than the fact that it would have sped the process up a little bit. So she immediately says episiotomy. And my little antennas went up and I was like, no, ma'am. Yeah. We didn't consent to that. And then immediately the doctor started panicking. And she was like, well, if we don't get the baby out, you could kill the baby and the mom and and like a whole event. And I'm just like, let's just coach her through another breath.
Yeah.
And everything will be fine. And that's all that it took. And baby was delivered, no episiotomy, no issue.
Because I could imagine that if you weren't there or even just another doula, that scenario would have went different. Mm-hmm. Like the mother's vulnerable, the most vulnerable she'll ever be in her life, laying down, birthing a child. Yeah. She can't make that decision. And I've seen dads faint. So the dad might not be strong mentally in that moment either. And hey, if this is what the doctors say, then we should do it.
Exactly.
But, okay. So I see how in that situation, it was very important that you were there. And
but not just that, the dad isn't typically in view of what the doctor is doing and can't necessarily see that. Like usually the woman's legs are up and the little thing is up. The gown that she has on is up, so you can't necessarily see past her knees if you're on this side. So me being on this side, I'm watching just to make sure, because medical malpractice is for real, especially with Black women. So I have to make sure that they're on their P's and Q's to make sure that my client is safe, Let's store the at-home birth story on the impact. Let's jump into that because I know you mentioned you want to talk about it. The racial inequalities when it comes to giving birth in hospitals. Yeah. Specifically, we know that racism is still a thing. And it doesn't just exist in different realms like police brutality or other areas that we may experience it the most, but it's also a thing with women giving birth. Like you said just a few minutes ago, in her most vulnerable moments, she's not being listened to in certain situations. Black women specifically are not being listened to or not being heard, not being taken seriously because, of course, Black women have that stigma of, well, she's just exaggerating. She's just too much. And she's just whatever the case. You know what I mean? In a lot of cases, whenever they're not being listened to, bad things happen. Like there's really something going on and they catch it on the back end. And by then it's just too late, Yeah. So I think it's important to have a doula so that you have somebody on your side who you can trust, who knows the system, who knows what to look for, and who has your best interest at heart. You're not just a bed to your doula. You know what I mean? You're an actual person that they care about. Yeah. A safe space.
Yeah. It does suck that, we're in a place where racism is still a factor. But in my opinion, the system's by design. They want us to be divided. They want us to, but the conversations need to be had. You know what I mean? Like we have to talk about this. I've never heard anybody mention racial inequality in the hospital. You know what I mean?
It's terrible.
Oh, I'm sure.
Black women die three times more than any other race, specifically white women, but 3 times more likely to die on the table. Yeah.
So how would you go about if the doctor like I know you told the doctor to breathe, like, let's get through this. Like, what if they weren't receptive to that? Like, how would you, because like the birth's happening.
It's happening.
Like, would you request for like, hey, I need your supervisor? Like how does that work? Or it's like, hey, this is all be all like.
I mean, it kind of depends on the situation. Like, it's important for me to be able to read the room and know how to come at different people. It really depends. In a lot of circumstances, a birthing woman is able to actually fire their doctor. If they're not listening to you and if they're not doing what you are consenting to or a woman is consenting to, they can fire their doctor.
Got you.
But again, if it's a situation where the baby's head is coming out, I mean, what can you really do?
It's not really smart to fire the doctor.
Right.
I got you. I was just wondering, like, in the situation, like, because I know you're going to do your best to stand your ground, but also we're all standing in this room having this battle because there's a baby coming out. So we got to meet in the middle somewhere.
Find the middle ground, yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into the at-home birth story that, will display the importance of having your doula.
Yeah, of course. So this was a free birth. And I was basically, me and her partner were the only means of support that she had. And we have made it through early labor with her, and we've moved into a transition. It's a phase that they call in labor. Whenever you're getting really into like the pits of labor and the woman she can't even have a conversation. Yeah. Right. And she's really in it and she's cussing everybody out and she's just like, I can't do this. Give me the back crack. Take me to the hospital.
Not the back crack.
The back crack.
Clip it. The back crack is crazy. That's crazy.
And she was begging us to take her to the hospital. And of course her partner was trying to talk her out of it. And there was a few moments where her partner would walk off and she's in the bathtub and I'm laying like over the bathtub, just looking at her. And I give her like this look. A look is all it takes. Like, I gave her this look of reassurance, like, chill, you got this. Let's just breathe. I'm here with you. Like, you know what I mean? Just that look. And in that look and in that moment that we shared together, she just knew like, okay. And then she stopped tripping. She had her baby and everything was fine.
Yeah. Y'all connected.
Exactly.
Like, y'all had a connection and like the moment was just right. It'd be like that, man. Mm-hmm. It'd be like that. Not the same thing at all. No, again, don't take anything to me. But what I was going to say is like, sometimes me and my manager, we, never mind. I'm gonna choose not to say that. Sometimes I share too much and don't. But damn, I'm like really amazed. I got lost where we were.
Yeah.
As far as childbirth, what are some misconceptions that you think trouble parents through the pregnancy?
Pregnancy or childbirth itself?
Pregnancy, because you do like the whole process, right?
Yeah. Like, during pregnancy, it's more so I'm loading them up with all the information to prepare them for childbirth. I do get clients who will ask me, hey, I have this going on. What do you suggest for this or what have you? But a lot of our interactions are more geared towards childbirth.
I got you. So in that process of education,
mm-hmm.
what are some things that you think people look past mm-hmm. or just are completely unaware of when they're preparing for labor during their pregnancy, but they don't have a doula?
Yeah. A lot of expectations in terms of the hospital, I would say. We all know that like the overall consensus and the idea of childbirth is just total fear. Like when you see it on the TV or TV shows, it's just total like fear based and there's a woman screaming and it's just a total medical emergency. So my job is just kind of tone that down a little bit, bring, my client back to earth and just let them know, okay, well, this is what to expect. You can do different things that most people don't think about, like delaying the cord, like cutting the cord and why that's important, or the interventions, explaining each one and why it's important and why you shouldn't, why you should. The vaccines, explaining the different vaccines and what's in it, how it can interact in the baby's body and just things like that is what I educate them with.
Yeah, because in that situation, like you said, have the E word,
episiotomy.
Episiotomy.
Yep.
Whenever that happened, if all they knew was I shouldn't get that, but they didn't know why.
Right.
And the doctor says why, it's like, oh, well, now that's the most information I have about this.
Right.
So yeah, I could see, hey, now I'm glad because I'm talking about, and not too far from now, you know what I'm saying, trying to actually, it's crazy to say. Thinking about, you know what I'm saying, actually trying to have a baby. And like, this wasn't in, like, I knew you did it, but like, I don't know, we never talked about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's sounding very, because I'm not anti-hospital, because at the end of the day, if you need your life saved,
For sure.
like if it's life or death, 9 times out of 10, they at least gonna help you. They might fuck you up to a degree while doing it. But I mean, we're not gonna downplay, everything has its role.
For sure.
But I'm considering, like, for sure looking into this and like making sure, because I think it's all like, when I was doing my comparison research between the midwife, like a doula's focus is like on the mental, physical, spiritual, like the focus of the well-being.
The woman itself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So more so just everything without the medical part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you have to have any certifications to be a doula?
You do. Yeah.
Okay.
You have to be certified.
Is it just like one thing, or is there, like, sometimes if you do welding, you have to have like 3, 4, 5 certifications, or it's just.
Well, it depends on the type of doula that you want to be.
Right. Okay.
If you want to be a birth doula, you have to have a birth doula certification, postpartum certification, or a full spectrum, which is like all encompassing.
There we go. So that's what you have, is the full spectrum.
For sure.
That's what I was trying to get at. Like, so there are some out there that only practice in postpartum.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Do you ever collaborate with any other doulas, or this just your thing?
It's just my thing. Yep.
Okay.
I try not to take on too much so that I need outside help. Not that I'm opposed to collaborating in any way. Right. I think that's beautiful. But I'm still trying to kind of make my own way at this point. I feel like once I'm a little more established, then I can network, venture out.
Once you're to the point where you're like, collaborating could boost me. But right now, you're still mastering your aspects, so you don't want to be clouded by other people. Yeah, man. Yeah. This is cool. It's cool just like sitting here looking at you. Remember, man, we were in high school.
I know.
I used to be on the court. You did track and field too, didn't you?
In middle school, not in high school. I think it coincided with softball. I played softball.
Yeah. I knew you did something else, because you was a sports person for sure.
Flag football,
back
all
in
of
the
it.
day. Yeah. And then you still jogging and stuff. So that's good staying active.
Yeah.
We still got some time. What about that, being active? See, I'm mixing. Is that something like being active? Is that something that you inform your clients about?
Yeah. Well, the whole educational aspect of it, of course, I lead them into different positions that they can get into, different stretches to help prepare for childbirth and to prepare the cervix. There's different, overall, like different yoga positions, different things that they can do on a yoga ball, like moving their hips and
Like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just like that. Okay.
Well, here we are. Transparent as can be. Self. I had major plans, you treated like it was minor. I made the clothing brand, you chose to wear designer. Oh, you chasing trends. I added value, now you wanna come and make amends. Thought the love and faith was there, but I can see it was all pretend. People don't love you until they love you, but I understand. I can't take it personal, cause I'm a businessman. I got these silent followers, I must convert to fans. Don't let your dreams subside due to your circumstance. Acknowledge the problem, then find solutions. You know what's equivalent to the idea, my nigga? It's the execution. You don't eat by entitlement, but your contribution. But many perspectives on loyalty can really cause confusion. So I can't let you tell it. Complacent vibes when I'm in your presence. The intentions behind your words can be a lethal weapon. Ready to assassinate my character. The amnesia people get can be so hysterical. Instead of taking it to the heart, I'd rather laugh at my pain. I don't need an umbrella when I walk in the rain, because I'm trying to wash away these sins. When you start changing for the better, you get it reevaluated.
What's going on, Duval? We're back with segment 2 with Tierrah Samuels, Duval's Doula. I just made that up right now.
I love
Duval's
it.
Doula. I like that. But I wanted to we kind of skipped over. I usually give the beginning of the episode more getting to know the guest, not just what they do, but themselves. So were you born in Jacksonville?
I was.
Born. What hospital were you born in?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay. That's my follow-up if anybody's. I wasn't born here, so I just like to see, you know what I'm saying, where we're scattered.
Yeah.
I've
never
here your
considered
whole
that.
life?
I have.
Just go visit family elsewhere, but you never like have been positioned anywhere else?
I've stayed here in Jax
That's cool.
all 32 years.
What do you notice different from, you know, being an adolescent growing up here? Like one thing I'll notice because of the area like that we both had been in, Kernan, used to be all trees.
Yep.
From McCormick to JTB, just trees. And now it's all businesses. Like Kernan over there across from Kohl's used to be like nothing.
Nothing.
They added a little something, and then now it's like, yo.
A movie theater, a Tesla.
Yeah.
I think a new apartment complex.
Yeah, there's one behind the shopping center. Then there's one to the side now, and then they're building. Listen, I say we don't need no more apartments, but there's so many people moving here. That's going to be the fastest way to give people places to live.
Well, if you build it, they'll come.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Like
they're building them everywhere, every part of town. I think I see these little rise things.
They gotta be like somehow giving new residents of Jacksonville like discounts. Cause I don't know why y'all moving here. The rent's going up so high. Like
it's crazy.
I'm debating on leaving this bitch. But what changes have you noticed? Like what's different about Jacksonville from when you were a kid?
I mean, that's kind of hard to answer just because I feel like our perceptions shift and everything seems a little bit bigger whenever you grow up. You know what I mean? And you kind of view things differently, but kind of piggybacking on what you just said, the development overall, like it doesn't feel like my childhood home essentially, you know, because there's so many different changes. It's like, I can't necessarily go back to this memory because it's drastically changed, you know?
Yeah, it's been changed for a while too. So like that memory kind of, maybe one day when you're like 45 trying to figure out something in your life, it'll just pop up. But
yeah.
I don't really like remember riding down the road anymore, like Kernan, just specifically what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So let's flip it then, not since you were a child, but since high school. You know, when you were leaving campus to go places, maybe skipping school, you know what I mean? Like what malls, you know, we used to go to Regency Mall now. Like
Regency, yeah.
Like,
did they close it down yet?
What's happening at Regency right now is they're charging people such a high rent that they're just leaving.
Okay.
Because they're trying to force people out.
Intentionally.
I know somebody, you remember Lids, the hat store?
Yeah.
You know how small it is? Smaller than this room we're in right now. My friend went there for a quote for rent. And it was between $3,500 and $4,000 a month.
For that little box.
That little room. There's like no other stores open around it.
No, I think the last time I went to go get CMOS from, I think, One Connection or One Bridge Connection or something like that. It's like a little store with all of the Black-owned businesses in it.
Yes, One Bridge Connection. They have different clothing brands inside of it. Dope Tropic is in there. That's how I found out about that. I haven't been there yet. I need to go peep that out.
Well, I don't know if they're still there. It's been a minute since I've been, but the last time I went, which was probably about a year or something ago, there was like the roof was caving in. That's what it looked like. I don't know how it looks now.
In their business or just in the mall?
Just in the mall in general.
Oh, I was like, hey, y'all going I'm paying $3,000 a month, bro. You gotta, the ceiling should be shiny.
No, just walking through the mall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are you? You're at the beach, right?
Atlantic Beach. Yeah.
Okay. What benefits do you find living across the bridge versus living in town? Because I know you used to live in town. What's keeping you at the beach?
Slower pace. I feel like as soon as you go over that bridge, the pace changes. And I feel like I resonate more with the slower way of living. And also the beach is, of course, a perk. Being able to jog down to the beach is pretty dope.
So when you say it slows down, describe that. How is it a more slow pace?
I feel like there's a lot going on the other side of the bridge. Let's say Atlantic Boulevard, going over the Atlantic Boulevard Intercoastal. like whenever you go towards the beach, there's not as much traffic. There's not as much like bustling. I mean, I guess until you get over to where the beach bars are on specific nights. But outside of that, it's a lot slower.
A lot of the beach bars be how do they say it? Townies. Townies at the beach bar. So that energy doesn't count per se.
Yeah.
But no, so essentially you're just saying the energy is different. Like it's not, people aren't rushing to like get out of the way, honking, beeping. Like it's not tense. It's more relaxed.
For sure.
Do you think that has to do with just how, Atlantic Beach, Jack's Beach and stuff is set up, or is it the ocean? The water,
it could be a little bit of both, because I feel like that bridge like is
you have to drive over the water to get over there. Yeah, no, I can feel it. I definitely, when I go to the beach, it depends what I'm going there for. But if I go on the sand, like it's a great day.
Yeah,
it's just something. I hate getting sand on my feet and in my crevices and stuff. I hate when that happens. But being in the ocean, like even our dirty water here, I went to the Bahamas recently. I don't know if I'll ever get back in Jack's Beach.
Yeah,
I can see my toes no matter where I went. I'm 50 feet out, I'm seeing my toes. As soon as I put my feet in the water at Jack's, like, goodbye. I can't see no shark coming or nothing. So what do you like to do yourself? Like when you're not, I know you're a mother, you're a doula, but when you don't have those responsibilities and you get time to yourself, what do you like to do?
I'm honestly pretty low key. I like to keep it simple. Like I said, I'll jog down to the beach. Any type of moments that I can find to myself, I like to sit with myself and meditate, or I'll go to the gym with my best friend here and there whenever I have time. So,
what gym do you go to?
Brooks, well, YMCA, but the Brooks location over by the town center.
What's the difference between a regular YMCA and the Brooks YMCA? Is it just that they have rehabilitation as well, or is the gym itself like more advanced?
I like the gym. I like the vibe at the gym, and also they have a sauna. Like, I really love going to the sauna.
Oh, like regular YMCAs don't have the saunas?
Well, not all of them. Like the one over in San Jose, which I've been to before, they don't have a sauna. Like a couple of them have a sauna, but it's usually broken down.
So since I left the Planet Fitness phase, I now will no longer go to a gym if it doesn't have a sauna.
Right.
I'm like, hey, I need this sauna. The sauna. Sometimes I go to the gym and I just use the sauna.
Just the sauna, yeah.
Yeah, bro. That sweat really does something to you.
Yeah, you need a detox.
You do cold plunging at all? You ever tried cold plunging?
I haven't. No.
Are you like, you don't like the cold?
I don't. Okay. It's so uncomfortable.
That's very, very, like, you're not going to get into it then.
No.
Yeah. Cold plunging, like, really, the science behind it is as long as you're in it for 3 minutes or longer, then it boosts your dopamine 2.5 times in a span of 2.5 hours. And it makes my day usually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're in it.
Oh yeah.
How often do you do it?
When I decide to.
Okay.
I'm not on a schedule or nothing. Sometimes like if my knees hurt, I'll do that. And when I get out, it's gone. Yeah. It's like it helps. That's the other thing. It opens cold shock proteins in your body, which go to fix things. And same thing with sauna, it's hot shock. That's why it's important to be in the sauna a certain amount of time. A lot of people, once they break that sweat, they're like, all right.
Time to go.
That's the beginning of the sauna.
Right.
Like, you're supposed to be dripping. You should come out look like you got baby oil on if you did a proper sauna session. So I did want to get into, do you see more single mothers or more couples through your doula practices?
I would say it's probably even. I do get a lot of couples, of course, but I also do see single mothers. I actually get a lot of clients through Medicaid who are a little lower income community, which I feel like initially getting into it, like we discussed in the beginning, like my initial mindset was, okay, how can I be of service, right? And a lot of my clients initially didn't necessarily need a doula. I mean, I feel like all women do, but I kind of got introduced to a community that actually really needed support, because they're by themselves. They don't necessarily have a means of support. They don't know how to obtain support. So I kind of took it upon myself to be like, okay, well, even though these higher class clients are here, these are the people that actually need me. You know what I mean? So I get a little bit of both, but I really like to focus on my single mothers and clients that come to me through Medicaid.
So I did want to jump back. We kind of covered different parts of your full spectrum, but I wanted to cover 1, 2, 3. So during the pregnancy, that is mostly just to inform them and prepare them for the process of birth.
Correct.
So they have the knowledge. So then during labor, what's your role? What do you do during labor? And is it different when you're at the hospital versus at home?
It's a stark contrast, to be honest with you. It's very different. Usually at home, whenever they feel the onsets of labor, they'll kind of keep me informed through text. That way I can kind of gauge when to show up and when to lend support. When I do get there, I support them in the way of just letting them know what they're experiencing, what different feelings mean. And then also whenever they have their contractions, I provide different comfort measures to make sure that they can get through it and they stay grounded through it.
What are some of those feelings that they have that you try to guide them through?
Nausea. A lot of times with natural childbirth, during labor, once you get close to having baby, like the end of labor, a lot of women throw up and then they feel like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And I'm there to, assure them like this is perfectly natural. Once you get towards, the pinnacle, it's going to happen because your body is reacting to it.
Right. I seen a video on your Instagram where you were kind of like holding the hips while they were in the like dog position, or they're on their knees and hands, and you were like kind of like shaking their hips. Could you tell me more about like what that helps?
Yeah. So there's a couple different methods that you just explained. One of them is counter pressure. So whenever they're feeling a contraction, a woman usually feels it in her lower back and it wraps all the way around to her stomach and her lower abdomen. So what the counter pressure does, me squeezing it, is it takes the pressure off of her back. So whatever pain she's feeling, me squeezing it, it lessens that pain and the pressure in her back. And then, of course, the jiggling kind of releases all the tension that she's feeling in the bag.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So it's literally all of the techniques that I use and I kind of guide sometimes the partner to do as well, is strictly to guide her and to ease her discomfort through labor so that she can feel empowered and she can feel like she can confidently achieve this natural birth that she usually wants to achieve.
Okay, cool. And then before we move on to the postpartum, are there any other things that you want to cover in the labor aspect? Or you said childbirth and labor are two different things, right? Labor is the anticipation of the birth.
Yep.
Okay, so but that is all part of the same stage in your doula?
Yep.
Or in your being of doula? I don't know.
Yep.
Whatever.
It's all
the people know, but is there anything else inside of that part of it?
Yeah. So I explained how it is at home, and in the hospital, it's a little different just because you have nurses coming in and out. You have the pressure of the nurses for them to take, certain medications, even if they want to do it natural. And even if I have a client who is okay with taking medicine and I'm supporting them through the epidural or the Pitocin or whatever, that labor looks different as well. I'm not as hands-on just because they can't feel anything and they don't necessarily need me. I'm more of an emotional support and informative support at that point.
What are some mental struggles you've helped mothers work through during the childbirth?
I think the number one thing is them feeling like they can't do it. Like once they get into it, they're like, I can't do this. Like, what do I do? Like there's always this point in their labor where they look at me and they're like, what do I do? I can't do this. And I'm just like, you're fine. And then I explain the process. I explain that I'm here to support them. Just take a deep breath. And I'm literally there just to ground them in their chaos,
Right. Have you ever had those feelings while giving birth? Like, I can't do this right now. Or like,
I'm going to be honest. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Just because I felt like with my amount of knowledge and me being completely secure in my ability and my natural innate ability. I mean, I know I was literally born as a female to give birth. I trust that process, know, so I never really had that issue.
Right. It's by design.
Exactly.
Yeah. So nature will handle itself.
Exactly.
Okay. Just while we're in that stage, have you ever been, in the room while there's I'm not sure what it's called, but when the baby comes out feet first?
Breech.
Okay. Have you been in the room when that happens?
Not personally.
Okay. Any other kind of complications in that?
I think the only complication that I personally witnessed, just because typically when there is a complication, a doctor will especially breech, will say C-section automatically. There's not a lot of midwives or doctors who are okay with naturally birthing a breech baby. So that's how that'll typically go. And it's probably why I haven't necessarily experienced it. But I think the only complication that I've personally experienced is shoulder dystocia. And that is basically when a baby in optimal position, their back is against the mom's belly, right? And they can just kind of come down the canal. But shoulder dystocia is whenever a baby is turned like this and they can't necessarily come through because their shoulders are against it. So that's probably the only complication that I've witnessed.
Okay. And everything turned out fine.
It did. They use like this interesting method, which was my first encounter with it, my first time ever even hearing about it. But it's like a super pressure punch or something that the doctor said, like super pressure. That don't sound. It was wild.
Yeah, super pressure punch.
So while the doctor was like pulling the baby, trying to get it out, like the nurse like put her fist down and like she like jumped on top of it and the shoulder popped right out. It was wild.
Okay, a little DIY. That's probably not in the medical books. Ew. She was like, "Hey, listen, I know what I'm doing. Just trust me." That's her thing. Like she's the in case we need you.
Yeah.
Here. Okay, so then in postpartum, which from my understanding, going no doula and no education on it, and going doula and doing some research, two big different things. I think the placenta.
Yeah.
Would be one of the more important things because I don't believe the hospital encourages you to do anything with that.
No.
I think they probably grab some stem cells out of there and charge you for discarding it too.
Exactly.
Right? Yep. So yeah, let's just go over the postpartum careness. I know you put herbal blends together for them and then the placenta preservation. So I'm gonna let you take the field now and just talk about the postpartum aspect of being a doula.
Of course. Honestly, the postpartum aspect is different for a lot of women. It can be different for each woman because some need guidance in terms of support with breastfeeding. Some need guidance with herbal support because they feel malnourished or fatigued. Some need help with chores around the house, simple things like that. Whatever the mother feels like she is lacking in and she's not able to focus on her own healing and her baby, then that's where I put my attention.
So you'll do their chores for them.
Yeah.
That's so great. No, that's really like deep on the like care for them. Because I'm thinking everything is just like focused on the birth and that aspect, but it's the other stuff because that now everything's a part of the birth because now the child is here. Okay, continue.
Yeah, it's considered the 4th trimester postpartum. Because even after she's given birth, she still has to go through a whole realm of adjustments within her body, within her environment at home, how she interacts with her partner, her family, herself, how she views herself. There's so many different changes that are occurring during postpartum and women need support. They don't think they do. Society doesn't think that they do. 6 weeks, back to work. You know what I mean? And honestly, women really need to know that during this time, the 4th trimester, they need to sit back, they need to rest, they need to understand that this is the season where they need to be taken care of so that she can focus on herself, her healing, and her baby and bonding with her baby.
Yeah. We treat it as if you are still pregnant. You still rest. And so when it comes to resting, how long is that process? Like how long do they need to be in bed for 2 weeks? Like what does that look like?
The rule of thumb is 5-5-5. Okay. So 5 days in bed. Don't get out of bed. Don't try to walk to the store. Don't try to, 5 days in bed. 5 days by the bed, where again, you're still not doing a lot. And then 5 days around the bed. So the 5-5-5 is pretty easy for everybody to remember. In some cultures, honestly, it's 40 days where a woman is supposedly catered to by her grandmother, her mom, or whatever her village is in different cultures.
Who would you say during your pregnancies closest played the doula role for you? Did you have any support through your pregnancy, like for preparation?
Honestly, no.
No?
Mm-mm. I didn't have any form of support like that. And I think that's why I go so hard for women who don't, Yeah. There's a big community of women out there who really deserve support and don't even know that they need it.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, it's it doesn't end after you have the baby by far. You got minimal 18 years by the American definition, like that you're going to still have to take care of this person. And I feel like after, a few years, depending on how you treat it, like you'll see like, yeah, just get on your phone, like, like, and then that plays out so much further into their life. And I feel like you can see that in people, or even like kids. You'll see like 2 5-year-olds, and one of them is very well mannered, can entertain themselves by themselves, but then there's another one very highly acting out, or ADHD symptoms. I think we have a lot of
labels,
false diagnosed ADHD. I think it's just something easy to say, this kid has ADHD.
I would agree to that. We don't spend enough time outside anymore.
Right. And then, but also the way of teaching. Like it's like, hey, you just sit down right here and just listen to what I have to say until I say you don't have to anymore. Versus Montessori schooling follows the kid's growth. Like we have to move at the pace of the kid. But let's get into the placenta. Let's talk about placenta. Like, what is a placenta, and what does it do? I mean, I know what it is. It's the nutrition to the baby. But like, give me more on it.
Yeah. So like I said, like, after birth, a woman goes through all these different changes. So just giving a backdrop, the placenta forms inside of the woman to nourish the baby. It provides oxygen, vitamins, hormones. It actually filters stuff out that's like toxins out of the womb to help baby as well. And then after we birth the placenta, whenever a woman does reach that postpartum stage, the nourishment, the vitamins, the oxygen, the hormones, all those things actually help her internally as well. They help her with vitality. They help her with milk supply, boosting her breast milk. They help with postpartum depression, which is a really big thing. And all the vitamins so it's beautiful.
Your body creates the placenta. It's not a woman, unless you're pregnant, you don't have a placenta.
Right.
Okay. So since your body made it, it would make sense that it brings you back afterwards, because it's probably part of the process, like biologically. It makes I'm putting this in here for the baby. Yeah. But after the baby's out, like the other half's yours. Yep. Like the other half of stuff's in here is for you to go back into your, man, this is so crazy.
And women, a lot of women, like I said, during postpartum, they, not just because of a lack of support, but those hormones that they lose during childbirth really play a hand in why they feel like they're depressed and they just can't, get it together. So having those replenished and having your placenta encapsulated, honestly, people consume it all types of different ways. People put it in their smoothies, they eat it raw, they cook it. I encapsulate it. So whenever people encapsulated it, it really adds those nutrients and everything that she needs to maintain a steady mind.
Well, the smoothie thing, when I first heard about that, I want to say one of the Simmons sisters, like Angela Simmons or something, they were on their show talking about placentas and stuff, and they were talking about putting it in smoothies. Yeah. And it threw me off at first, but now we have people on social media, which I know this will fall highly out of line with like your beliefs for lifestyle, but eating raw organs of animals, raw, like eating it on camera. So like that don't even gross me out no more. Like hey, you throw it in a smoothie, hey, whatever you have to do. Encapsulation. What is, like, I know the definition of that, but what's the process of preserving the placenta and keeping it healthy? Because I imagine if you just like threw it in a mason jar and just put it on the counter, that's not going to keep it up to par for too long. So what is encapsulation?
Well, I try to encapsulate it probably right after I get home with the placenta from the hospital or after she gives birth. I don't like to sit too long. But once I do start the encapsulation process, I, of course, rinse off the placenta. I'll steam it. After steaming it, you cut it up, put it in the dehydrator. After you put it in the dehydrator, you just blend it up until it's in a powder form, and then you put it in the capsules.
Okay. See, I was under the impression that there was something holding this raw placenta, like just in its standard form, how it came out, just sitting there in like some juice or something. It's way different.
Like, you mean like encapsulated?
Like when I hear encapsulated, I imagined a device. That sits here and has something over the, like almost like a UFO, like, and you open the top and there's liquid inside and the placenta sitting in it. That's what I envisioned. But okay, there's
capsules. Little capsules.
Okay. Encapsulated. Let's get that. Okay. That's not what I was hearing. But when I hear preserve, okay. It's a
little more tangible. You can just pop
yeah. And the smoothie thing makes more sense now too, because I was thinking like a raw cut.
No, some people do that. Yeah.
Oh, like freshly. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is just your way of doing it, but what I'm saying is a thing too.
Yeah, like the raw where they not in like a capsule, but like whenever they put it in a smoothie, there's some people who actually put it in there raw.
Okay.
They'll cut it up, blood and all, and just pop it in there and add some fruit and call it a day.
What's your take on that? Versus,
I personally wouldn't, just because I don't have the stomach for it.
Okay.
But I'll consume it in a capsule.
Okay.
Where it looks like powder and it doesn't look less appealing.
Is there any benefit? Because I've heard of people eating other people's placenta. Mm-hmm. Is there benefit in that? Could somebody benefit from eating someone else's?
I mean, they're still getting all the vitamins and the stem cells. Of course, everybody wants stem cells, so.
Well, yeah, the doctors are doing something with that one they're keeping at the hospital for sure. Mm-hmm. What is your postpartum? Anything else inside of that? Your herbal care?
Oh, yeah. So in terms of postpartum, I think one of the things that I like to incorporate, especially with my moms who give birth at home, is making sure that right after they have birth, their baby, right after they birth, I give them a blend to make sure that they don't hemorrhage, they don't bleed, and nothing crazy happens on my watch, So I make that postpartum tea. And then also there's this postpartum sitz bath. So whenever they do take their first bath, they can sit in it and it helps them to heal their perineum and their parts down there.
And that's an herbal thing as well?
It is, yep. Okay. So it's in this big tea bag and then you just boil it, pour it in the water. Now, being that it's a sitz bath, it's not like a soak where you're not fully immersed. A woman is just literally sitting in like a little bit of water.
Right.
To where she's only focusing on the parts that matter.
Right. It's not a relaxing birth. It's not a relaxing bath like for you to like wind down. It's for the nourishment of, I guess, what is it exactly nourishing?
It's nourishing, but it's also like healing any type of lacerations. It's helping to bring everything back into wholeness. Also, it helps with bleeding.
So I'm gonna like be very vulnerable right quick. So like, I don't exactly the vaginal hole. It sounds so bad when it just came out now. I knew it was going to sound bad, but that's where the baby comes out of.
Correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So that stretches out. Mm-hmm. And then the whole point of this is to get that just back to its healthy state.
Yeah. Okay. Essentially. But also during that process, some women tear.
Okay.
Imagine a woman actually does get an episiotomy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like whatever trauma they've experienced down there, be it a laceration or they're literally just, healing themselves, then that's what it would be.
Okay. I'm glad you said trauma. How do you comfort your patients that have had previous traumatic births or traumatic experiences during birth? How do you comfort them to that they will not, that you have methods that will help that? Like how people that are uncertain, like let's say you meet up with somebody and they're like, I wanted to understand more about doula. Like how could you comfort them if they've already experienced trauma?
A lot of the traumas that a lot of my clients experience are with C-sections, the terrible healing with C-sections, their doctor not listening to them, their doctor being too rough, different cervical checks that are happening too often. And with that, infection is invited in. So those are the types of trauma that a lot of my clients experience. And honestly, just giving them more information and education and the comfort and safety, knowing that me being in the room will help to prevent all of that, which that they experienced before. Right.
Because you're pretty much their middleman. Like you don't look at them and ask them about that. Like I'm telling you that she doesn't want that. And then that's the importance of understanding when you go in. Because I didn't know, obviously there's papers you have to fill out for liabilities, but I didn't know that like you can opt out of, a C-section. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I know y'all say we got to cut into me, but I don't want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to continue. I didn't know you had that option. I thought, man.
And a lot of women don't know that they have that option. They
Yeah.
think that whatever the doctor says goes. And at the end of the day, you have full autonomy over your body. It's your body. This is your experience. You can let them know, like, no, I'll fire you. No.
Do you have any crazy stories? Like just the listeners would die to hear.
Crazy as in funny, or just crazy as in like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened.
Let's do both.
Okay. I think the craziest experience that I've had was more so, it was in the hospital, of course. And I had a client who was in push mode, and apparently, so physiologically giving birth on your back just doesn't make any sense. Right. So my client is on her back, of course. She wants to do it natural. And being that she is doing it natural, she's not succumbed to the bed. She doesn't have to stay necessarily on her back. Whereas if she had an epidural, she would be stuck in that one position, right?
Yeah, because the epidural is going to numb.
Right. And if you can't feel your legs, you can't move. Right. So she's natural. She doesn't have the epidural. And she's having a hard time pushing her baby out on her back. And the doctor is just like, you got to push. What are you doing? Just going in on her. And I was like, look, I'm usually the grounder. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get irate. I don't meet their energy. I'm just like, okay, let's put her on her hands and knees. Let's let gravity help the situation. Like, let's calm down. And she's like, no, if she doesn't push the baby out, I'm getting the vacuum. We're going to get this, just going crazy. And a lot of the times whenever I speak up, the doctors panic for some reason, but she said she was going to get the vacuum and everything. And it just took a few more pushes, a few more coaches of breath or whatever. But I honestly think that if she would have been a little more open to different positions to birth, it would have really alleviated that whole situation. And
I'm going to assume, so basically your methods worked. All right. So I'm going to assume, the way medical practice looks at, natural ways, y'all probably didn't talk after the birth, huh?
Who's that?
The doctor.
No.
It's probably just like, all right, well, we're done.
I mean,
now.
they usually, doctors don't stay to talk. They catch the baby. Everything is cool. They take out the placenta and then they're onto the next room.
I would just think, as somebody who's growing internally right now, I would just think as a doctor, and like your job is to deliver babies, and you've seen something work in front of you, like I would think you would want to talk to the doula and like, hey, can I get your number so we can have a conversation?
Yeah.
You open my eyes. Like, that's like you say on one of your posts, the system's robotic. Mm-hmm. And like you said, if you try to intervene and they don't like that, I think it was actually about this story that you're talking about right now.
Potentially.
And it's like taking, what did you say? Putting a pin in a gear.
In a gear, yeah.
And messing up the whole operation and nobody knows what to do anymore.
Yep.
And it's like, this is y'all's like true went to school,
profession,
trained to do this. I found out about what I'm doing, picked it up through self-knowledge, and I know more than you. Like, that's kind of crazy. And
it's probably not even the fact that I know more. It's just that they're set in their robotic way of doing it. You know what I mean? If the woman if she's laid back and she has her legs up, it's more convenient for her to just be able to maneuver different things and provide different procedures to help the baby get out in whatever interventional method that they choose to use.
More as in alternate methods if one isn't working. That's what I would say. Like, because it is not, it's almost a slap in the face to like, oh, I know more. Like that's kind of ego driven, I would say. Do you have time for another segment?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're going to come back with another segment. We're going to be right back.
Duval County, baby.
What's going on, Duval? Welcome to the last segment. Again, we have, for the first time, a doula on the episode. We got Tierrah Samuels. What is your business name?
Womb of the Earth.
Womb of the Earth. Okay, so your Instagram handle.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Womb of the Earth. We didn't go over that. We didn't go over your Instagram handle. That will pop up on the bottom. But for our listeners, could you go ahead and drop that again? At
Womb of the Earth.
Womb of the Earth.
WOMBOFTHEEEEARTH.
There you go. And that's going to be your Instagram. Are you on any other platforms?
Facebook.
Okay. Facebook as well. And then you have your own website?
Not currently, nope.
Not yet. So how do people just DM you for anything? Okay. And then you walk them through there. All right, cool. So in this last segment, I wanted to make sure we covered birthing styles.
Okay.
So from my familiarity, it's going to be water births, I guess back births.
Back birth, you mean like at the hospital, laying on their back?
Yeah, when a baby? Just laying on your back. Okay. And then when you say gravity, hands and knees, deliver like that. Like you stay there to push the baby out.
Absolutely.
And it comes out like that. Okay. Are there any other birthing styles that I'm missing?
Honestly, whenever you're birthing naturally, I really push my clients and my mamas to birth however their body is telling them to. That could be standing up. That could be laying over with one leg up,
I'm tripping. That's standing up.
Yeah.
The most gravity, like you're just standing. Okay.
Yep.
So however feels comfortable to them. Listen to your body.
Exactly. So that's the main thing that I preach.
Maybe in that moment, they might not know, but they got to situate themselves. So maybe you'd walk them through, okay, well, let's start with this and go ahead. But you probably educate them ahead of time so they kind of know
what to do.
What they're looking for.
Yeah, sometimes there are some situations where they will be going through labor and their contractions are really close together and everything is intense for them, but they don't seem to be making progress. And there's a specific position that I'll coordinate where they're kind of tilting their butt in and also pulling their stomach up, and that'll drop baby right into position. And then, so that's just an example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's I'm not going to say benefits versus, but the difference between a water birth and everything else, is that just called a dry birth, or it's just not even?
It's not even a name.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between them?
So the major difference is hydrotherapy is extremely soothing whenever a woman is going through, I call them surges, contractions, but I call them surges when she's going through her surges. Like it really takes pressure off, the buoyancy takes pressure off of where she's feeling the pressure. So that helps. And then of course the heat from the water helps. Another major thing is whenever baby is transitioning from the womb, like they spend 9 months in this sac of liquid, the amniotic sac, right? So whenever baby transitions outside of you into water, it's not like this completely, stark difference where they're just shot out into the world with lights shining and hands all over them. You know what I mean?
Right.
It eases the transition. It makes it easier for them as well.
That makes sense. Cause you know how like babies, like if you just dunk them underwater, they naturally hold their breath. Mm-hmm. Like, so that makes sense. You're literally living in liquid for 9. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so do you have this is your preferred method? Do you have a preferred method, or is it's just always whatever's most comfortable, or do you lean for water over anything else?
I prefer personally water.
Okay.
If I can, get a client to if I can educate them and get them on board with that, I would do a water birth all day just because of the benefits and the ease of the discomfort. It's not as difficult for her to handle. You know what I mean? And like I said, that transition for baby as well. And a lot of people don't know that whenever baby comes out of the womb into the water, they can actually stay under the water for about a minute. They hold their breath just like you explained.
Yeah.
Until they take their first breath in actual air and oxygen.
Damn, bro. Just during this whole conversation, I just kind of be thinking like that was me one time.
Yeah.
Like, I was the one coming out the womb. That was 32 years ago I was doing that. Mm-hmm. And nowadays it's a lot easier to educate or reach people about this. Back in the day is like Yami was saying, like it's thought of to be like a rich people thing. And I think the issue isn't the money thing, it's the just knowing that it exists. Yeah. Yeah. Cause like I said before, like I knew you were doing this. Like I don't even think about it. It's not even a thought, but like it's the start of somebody's life.
Yeah.
So it's like the most important is almost arguably the most important part of that child's life, even though they'll never probably remember it or anything, but like how they're introduced to the world.
It's so important. It's so important. That experience for both the mother and the baby is so important. And I feel like a lot of the times our conditioning of what birth should look like gets in the way of us being able to dictate how we want it to go, like how we want to feel, how we want it to look, who wants to be in the room, and the different things that we're not okay with. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's really important for women to be educated so that they can make choices to really invite an interesting and intimate and beautiful experience for themselves and their baby.
I just had a thought.
What's up?
I didn't think about it before, but so you're full spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. Is within that spectrum also a miscarriage? Do you stay with the mother after a miscarriage and help guide them through that too?
Yeah, that more so looks like, of course, there's emotional support in that sense, but also providing resources to where she can, you know, I'll have a set of groups like where she can join a motherhood support group that's specific to miscarriage. Right. Yeah.
And in that group, is there some women who have miscarried and then ended up giving birth afterwards?
Yeah.
So it kind of gives them hope, like, hey, this isn't the end. Mm-hmm. It could feel like that. That's good.
That actually happens really often.
Yeah. I would imagine. I know some people who have miscarried before and they ended up having a child. It's just, as a man, you know what I'm saying? I don't even like naturally relate to this, but just trying to put myself in the shoes of a woman, I could imagine how scary it is not having any support.
Yeah.
And like how vital it is to have somebody whose job is just to support you. Yeah. Like you don't have, it's like we were just talking about, you know, we was having some discussion. I've done really good of not looking at the camera. I have this thing where I look at the camera, and I watch a lot of professional podcasts and they don't look at the camera. Yeah. Because it's supposed to just be a filming of us having a conversation. And sometimes I get lost in, and it's an anxiety thing. It's a self-evaluation thing. I start to just think, I don't know. I just noticed it. Yeah. I just noticed it. I'm a little proud of myself. a little clap.
Look at you being present.
But jumping back over to the water births, you said heated. Mm-hmm. So water birth to me, now it's gonna sound bad. Okay. But I pictured a kiddie pool, like with just water in it, and like that's end all be all. What's the process if I say, hey, I want to have a water birth, what do we need to do next? Mm-hmm.
Well, I offer birth tub rentals. Actually having a birth tub where it has like the little handles. There's like the little placenta bowl that comes with it. It specifically geared. It has like a little cushion on the inside so mama can kind of sit on that little cushion. Okay. But I tell all my clients, like, if you want to have a water birth, you can honestly go on Amazon and find a kiddie pool, or I have this option for you as well.
Got you. Yeah. So there's some comfort benefits to using the birth pool, and probably ease too. Like it's designed for it, so it makes sense. Now, how does that look? Is like the one you have? Is it inflatable? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can all of them, store it down. Because I was thinking, I was like, so at what stage of the pregnancy do you say, hey, it's time for you to just keep this pool? How big is it?
It's probably a little bit bigger than the stable. Yeah, it's enough to fit two people in it, mama and daddy.
Okay. Yeah. And then, is there any?
Keep the water warm. Really, I mean, if not hot, just because as she's sitting in it, it tends to cool. So initially, the water is pretty hot.
And does the birth pool? Does the birth pool have like heating stuff in it, or that's just something you have to keep up with yourself? You
would have to keep it up yourself. Okay. So there's a hose with a little adapter on the top of it. You can take that hose and you can either set it into the bathroom sink, and then you can run it hot water, whatever, or you can set it up in your kitchen sink and it'll just run straight into the...
And you connect it to the faucet.
Correct. Oh, yeah, okay. With the little adapter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes it a little more easy. Yep. That's cool. Yeah. Now something else I wanted to get into was, we all have different backgrounds. Some people come from different cultures where it's not even, specifically about religion. It's just a culture thing, but then you also have religious practices. And I wanted to know how you tailored your support to meet the unique cultural and religious needs of your clients.
Now, I don't typically experience any cultural aspects during birth. Okay. That usually comes in during postpartum. And that's because different cultures cater to women in different ways during postpartum. For instance, I had a Cambodian client where her mom came and took care of her, and specifically gave her meals for after birth, which are like warm stews, warm soups. She couldn't eat anything, drink anything cold at all for the first 40 days or what have you. They had a little
40 days.
Yeah.
So if you're somebody who likes a cold bath, it's gonna have to sacrifice.
Okay. It's supposedly it's supposed to help the whole healing process and with the warmth rather than the constriction of like the cold. You know what I mean? They even same culture. They even have like a sauna that they put her in to help her shed as well. Helps with the contraction. Like it's a whole thing. I even had a Mexican client who. Their culture, they do closing of the bone ceremony, which is after birth, during postpartum. They'll take these little fabrics, 8 fabrics, and they'll wrap her from the foot to the head. And that helps to, during childbirth, a woman's body completely opens, right? She's opening and it's a portal. So what that does, it tightens everything back up and helps to close the bones, literally.
Interesting. What is the 8? You said 8 towels. Do you know, what does the 8 mean?
There isn't anything specific. Honestly, it just takes 8 to go from the feet to the head.
I got you. Okay, cool. That was going to be my next part of it. Have you seen like rituals and stuff? But you naturally just brought it out. Brought it out yourself.
There's belly binding rituals, which helps women with their abdomen. Like whenever their belly stretches to meet the needs of the growing baby, of course, their abs pull apart like this. So belly binding helps to bring those back in. You have a lot of women who don't do belly binding and they have what they call, I can't even think of it right now, but it's where they're stuck like this. And you have the moms that have a little pooch or, the little sagginess or the extra skin right there. And it's because their abdominals are not necessarily closed. So that's one of the practices.
So much deeper than just like, what most people know about it.
Yeah.
Like, I've never thought like, because you think the stomach, you just think the pregnant stomach, like, oh, well, the baby's out.
Yeah.
So like, the stomach's just going to get smaller. But like, I never thought about the muscles inside of the stomach.
Yeah.
I imagine you use your whole body force to push.
Yes.
Like, I couldn't imagine like, I unfortunately have had hemorrhoids flare up and stuff like that.
That happens to a lot of women.
Listen, I turn into, like most men, I turn into a little bitch
Baby.
when I'm sick. Yeah, like I can't even say baby. It's worse.
Yeah.
It's worse. Like, excuse my French. We've done very good with like, because I'm a little like ghetto. So like, I feel like we've done really good for like, people that are just trying to be informed and not looking. But with that being said, there's a big difference from speaking on a man's perspective, being called a baby and being called a bitch.
Yeah.
Like, bitch is way worse. I turn into a bitch when I am not feeling normal and I'm feeling sick. So I didn't want to release at all because of that pain. So I can only imagine like, you don't got that choice to choose, I'm just not going to push this baby out. When the baby's ready to come, it's time. That's it. What plans do you have in preparation when you have an expecting mother for yourself? Because you have your own children and, you get called. It's that time you gotta go. So for other people that are maybe thinking about becoming a doula, what do they need to have set up for themselves? Let's just, because it could go deep if we had to go with children without, let's say they don't have children, they're a doula. What are some things that they need to prepare for and be ready for so they're available at the time needed?
I would say just knowing that the woman can give birth. The estimated due date isn't set in stone. It's hardly ever happens on the actual date. So it could happen before or after. So just making sure that their schedule is aligned and open for whenever that does happen, and making sure that if they do have kids, that there is some support there so that whenever you can get a call at 3 a.m., you have somebody to fall back on. Hey, I need to jet. And there's somebody there to watch the kids.
This is a very selfless job.
Yeah.
Like very selfless. Like you have to carefully plan vacations. Like, oh, okay. Let's say it's August. Like, okay, this is my last pregnancy. And November, December, that's when I'm going to do my thing. And I will be off from work.
Yeah.
Because once you commit to being somebody's, like any complication comes up, like you got to be that support.
Yeah. And it's not just the birth too, but also like the prenatal aspect. Like whenever you're giving information and education that comes in the form of meeting up with them, setting up a birth plan, doing the different things in person. So establishing those, there's probably about 2 or 3 of those before the woman actually gives birth. So making sure that there's time aligned for that as well is a thing.
I know you mentioned before one of the destinations for having a baby was a birth center. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between, obviously it's probably more catered to just giving birth and versus a hospital handles everything.
Yeah.
But what's the difference between a birth center and giving birth at a hospital?
Well, it's usually a midwifery practice that is housing the birth center.
Got you.
So you have midwifery care as opposed to an OB or a doctor. You know what I mean? So their scope is a little more geared towards the woman and more so geared towards natural birth, because you can't get an epidural at a birth center. Right. When you go into a birth center, you're going in with the knowledge that I'm having a natural birth.
Right. Mm-hmm. So would you say it's wise to have a doula and a housewife and then just leave the hospital out of it? And is that a practice? Have you ever had to collaborate with a housewife? Oh my God. How many times did I say housewife? Because I know I said the same thing twice. Men, I tell you, boy, man, y'all are something else, man. Y'all gotta relax. But yeah, midwife. Have you experienced, having to collaborate with a midwife and, putting a plan together?
I'm an advocate for natural birth. That's for sure. Just because I know that once you step into the hospital, you're more so in their realm. You know what I mean? And you don't necessarily have the autonomy. You don't necessarily have the freedom to move and do whatever you want. And I feel like that's important whenever a woman is in that vulnerable space of childbirth, So I'm an advocate for natural birthing and going the midwifery route. If I have a client who is interested in natural birthing, then I will definitely I have these recommendations. I know this midwife, X, Y, Z. Look into it, do a tour, talk to them, see how you feel, and then let me know. As simple as that. Because if I can talk somebody out of going to the hospital, I'm all for that. Not necessarily just talking them out of it, but more so informing them of the differences and why they should go more so the natural route and in a safer space. Yeah. I think that's big, just being and feeling safe when you're vulnerable.
Yeah. I would say from the sounds of it, like you said, the hospital has their way they want to do things. They're not looking at it. Anything in life has multiple ways of accomplishing. Mm-hmm. You can get to the same goal multiple ways. So I think it's very important that this is talked about, actually. Mm-hmm. And that it's going to be very hard to address the medical industry. Yeah. You got even Mark Cuban. Are you familiar with his company? Mm-hmm. Cost Plus Drugs, or
maybe not that one.
He has a pharmacy company now.
Okay.
Online pharmacy, but they're completely transparent. So they tell you how much they pay for the medication. They show you their markup.
Yeah.
Most of the times, if it's a medication, if it's $25, you'll pay $32.
Okay.
It's very minimal markup. Mm-hmm. Versus at the pharmacy, something that the pharmacy, and I actually learned that it don't work like that. I thought that the pharmacy paid $50 and the pharmacy charges you $500. No, the medical companies choose what the price of the medication is.
I see.
And the rebate from the insurance company goes back to, so sometimes small pharmacies, and this is how small pharmacies are getting shut down, they have to eat that their rebate is lower than what it cost them.
Yeah, there's a major deficit there.
And that's how they go out of business a lot. I was just listening to that with, I forgot who it was. It's a specific guest on the Joe Rogan podcast. He very, very much covers a lot of ground. Yeah. He has so many interesting people on there. I get a lot of inspiration from the way he does his podcast. Because again, I haven't heard anybody, not even just podcast, talking about doula at all. Yeah. Only thing I know, shout out to Billy Madison, man. Abdullah oblongata. Mama said crocodile's mad because they caught all those teeth. No toothbrush. Your mama is wrong. That's a classic. Anything else that you wanna throw out there on the scene before we wrap up? I'm gonna let you do your outro, but is there any other topics you want to discuss with me before?
Yeah, I think just kind of going back to the conversation of kind of deterring them from the hospital realm. It's not that I have like any bias or like I'm against the hospital. Like I feel like it's perfect for medical emergencies. But in the realm of like birth, I feel like if it's not a high risk pregnancy, then it's something that should be taken into more of an intimate setting, more of a setting where the woman has control and autonomy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And then high risk pregnancies would be from pre-existing conditions or comorbidities type stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, as you see, we've got episode 29 wrapped up. My manager scared me. He just looked at the camera with a weird look. I only got 1 minute left? Nah, what time is it on? It don't matter. It's okay. We at the end. What time is the camera on? 24. Oh, you scare me when you do the 1 minute because 25 is the goal. I'm thinking it's at 29. All right, cool. We good. Hey, man, shout out. Y'all make sure y'all follow my manager, man. Rain E. Clout. He's doing what is that called? The Noya. The Millie Rock.
Millie
Rock. All right, but yeah. Anyways, like I said, as you see, we got episode 29. I brought Tierrah Samuels, Womb of the Earth.
Yep.
That is her business. That is her handle on Instagram and Facebook. Any questions, you DM her. But did I cover that? Or like you
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. Thank y'all for tuning in. I hope y'all enjoyed this. To my lady fans, I got you. I haven't dropped. Only episode I dropped was Migo because it was already filmed. But other than that, we're gonna start getting the ladies on the scene. Let them have a voice. And as you see, it doesn't just the only two women I've had. I'm gonna wrap it up. I'll go in this all day. We want to thank Tierrah Samuels for coming through, aka Womb of the Earth.
Yeah.
Duval's Doula. We came up with that. Yes. We gonna own 50% of the trademark there. Get you a shirt, $25 a shirt, 2 of them for $40. We have all sizes from medium to 2XL. Sold out of the 3s. Shout out to my big boys, and
Duval County, baby.